Welcome everyone to DLA. I'm David Lombardino, and today I have the pleasure to be speaking with Priya Sorab. Priya, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thank you for joining us. So, Priya is a medical student at the University of Cincinnati Medical School. She has recently matched into ophthalmology, and she'll be talking about using DLA services for her personal statement and ARIS application. First of all, Priya, congratulations to matching. You must be very excited.
Thank you. Yes, it's definitely a huge relief to match.
I can imagine. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to DLA?
Yes, definitely. So I just begun my fourth year of medical school, which is when most people start to fill out their residency applications, and I was applying to ophthalmology. And I definitely had my thoughts straight on why I wanted to do ophthalmology, but I think I needed help organizing them kind of in a linear fashion, in a way that kind of showcased my positive qualities. And that's what led me to DLA editors as I crafted my personal statements.
Yeah. And so, did you have any red flags on that you know of for your application?
No, not really. But the one thing I will say is I was pretty nervous just because this is a holistic process and there's a lot that can go into it. So I knew, for example, that one or two metrics like a step score or even like one or two attributes like research like wouldn't be enough on their own to get me in, that it really was on me to showcase myself holistically in my best light, and I think that's really what led me here.
Awesome. And how were your step scores, by the way?
Hmm, I'd say like I was pretty happy with them. However, like I said, I knew that by itself a number is not enough to get anybody into any kind of residency. And that's really why I was trying to focus on highlighting my app in the best way I could, including all my attributes.
Yeah. And so, just give us an idea about how much time had you spent working on your personal statement before reaching out to DLA?
I definitely did have a draft down before I had reached out to DOA. If I had to estimate, I'd say I spent maybe 5 hours or so kind of getting my thoughts down and organizing them into an essay, which of course later did require lots of refining.
Yeah. And so, how did you find out about DLA?
To be honest, I found out about DLA on Google. I was looking for services that could help me not write a personal statement, that was something I wanted to do, but help me refine my personal statement. And a couple of different services came up. The reason I ultimately chose DLA was I saw that there's really experienced editors who will work with you, including through multiple rounds until you got the personal statement that we want.
Mhm. And you did just mention that you wanted to write the personal statement yourself. You wanted guidance with it. Some applicants will debate whether they should write the personal statement themselves, or they may have some feel nervous or kind of insecure about their ability to write their own personal statement, and may be debating between wanting somebody to actually write their personal statement for them versus getting kind of guidance, kind of like what you did. What might you say to them in terms of like what do you think is the better approach?
I think it's definitely a good idea to write the personal statement yourself. I think there's a couple of reasons for this. First off, I think programs really want a personal statement written by the applicant and not by anyone else. So, from a viewpoint of like plagiarism and honesty, the applicant really should be the one writing the personal statement themselves. And then also, I think ultimately for an applicant to be able to speak about their own reasons for wanting to go into a field, there is no better person to do it than the applicant themselves. However, that said, I think the guidance provided by services like DLA is pretty good because it helps the applicant take what they've already done or take the thoughts that are already in their mind and craft them in a manner that's simply very organized and that just showcases the best of their abilities.
Okay, and so the service that you use with DLA takes the personal statement through multiple rounds. It starts with the draft that you had initially, and kind of takes it through multiple rounds to get to the final version. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of kind of going through those rounds, kind of what each round did for you, and how the personal statement progressed through those rounds?
Yes, definitely. So, like I said, I did have a preliminary draft written before I reached out to DLA. And if I recall correctly, when I submitted my first draft, it came back with many comments as to how I should restructure some things. Sometimes it was restructuring the format of the personal statement itself. Sometimes it was comments such as, um, change your language here. Here's how better to frame it, include more personal examples. So I definitely spent a lot of time on that first revision. And as time went on and as we had more revisions, it was more about fine tuning, about how I could make things more concise. I think that is one quality that's very important in personal statements, keeping things concise, because the meaning is kind of lost when a statement isn't concise. I know as time went on, another thing we focused on was making each example that I mentioned more meaningful. So actually expressing the thoughts that I had more. And I think that's important too, because often as applicants, we have everything in our minds and maybe we assume that whoever is reading it can understand. But the reality is, a lot of these readers have not met us before. And what they see on the personal statement is what they see of us and their understanding of us. So I think as time went on, we really did focus more on that kind of fine tuning.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there may be some people watching this video who are kind of on the fence about using our services. And one of their concerns may be that they would come to us and get our guidance, but our guidance would ultimately, either they may disagree with it or it may take their personal statement in a direction that is not really what they want it to go in. What would you say based on your experience with DLA to somebody with those concerns?
I felt like DLA never forced me to do anything. Rather, it really did feel like they took the thoughts that I already put down there, which were ultimately my reasons for wanting to go into ophthalmology, and help me frame them in a way that was maybe easier to read. So they didn't try to put words in my mouth. In fact, it seemed like they really accepted everything that I had to say. And if there were times I had questions or something to discuss, they were more than willing to discuss that with me. It was definitely a two-way conversation in that sense. So if an applicant did have the concern that you mentioned, I would advise them to go ahead and still work with DLA because they are very helpful and very, very easy to work with. It never felt like they were imposing anything on me.
Well, that sounds great, and thank you for sharing that. So once you had your personal statement ready, you sent it in with your application. How did you do in terms of interviews? How many interviews did you end up getting?
Yeah, well, I was really nervous about interviews, especially because this year, because of COVID, there were many changes and no one was really sure how many interviews they would get. And I actually ended up getting more than I expected, which was pretty nice. I applied to ophthalmology and I also did apply to some like preliminary programs. And the reason is there's a couple of fields, ophthalmology as well as neurology, dermatology, radiology, and PM&R, where some residency programs require you to do a preliminary year in internal medicine first, and those are separate programs you apply to. So I had to apply to those as well as ophthalmology, and I definitely got way more interviews than I expected. So I was really relieved about that.
That's awesome. And so, how did the match actually go for you? How I guess you know, tell us about the program that you ended up matching to.
Yes, I ended up matching at St. John's Episcopal Hospital in New York, and I'm really happy about that. It was one of my preferred programs. I still remember how thrilled I was when I found out that that was the place I was going to. So, yes, I'm definitely thrilled. And because I mentioned the prelim program, I'll just say in my case, my program ended up offering an integrated preliminary year. So I didn't end up needing to do a prelim program, but it's very well possible that I would have had I gone to another program. So, I mean, I would still have done things the same way.
Okay, and so did you end up using so we helped you develop the personal statement for ophthalmology, and so did you end up using that same personal statement for both the regular ophthalmology programs and the prelim programs?
I used a variation of the ophthalmology personal statement that you helped me with. I changed it around a little bit because ultimately my aspirations are the same, which is why most of the personal statement was still the same. I just customized it a little to specify that I was looking for a prelim program. And yes, I did send in that personal statement to the prelim programs that I applied to.
Well, that sounds great. So, what would you say is the biggest benefit you got from DLA services?
I think it was really having that sense of close one on one guidance and candid advice about my personal statement. Like I said, I had my thoughts down, but I don't think that they were as well organized as they could have been before I worked with DLA. DLA really helped me organize my thoughts in a linear process and keep things concise, but also advise me to expand where I needed to expand. And that sense of advice from someone who was familiar with my application and with my personal statement was definitely really helpful.
Awesome. And so, if you were to be able to give one piece of advice to somebody who might be back in the position you were in, you know, before applying, what one piece of advice would you give them?
Do you mean when it comes to personal statements or to applying in general?
Um, with regard to personal statements, yeah, somebody who might be kind of debating about, what to do about the personal statement.
Mhm. I would say definitely have a strong idea of why you want to go into the field because that essentially is what makes up the personal statement. Having your thoughts down, and I'd say write the personal statement on your own. It's definitely a great idea to get some guidance and advice on that, but write it on your own first so you have a good base to work off of and then just go forward from there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story.
Thank you, and thanks for all the help with everything. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And it's been an absolute pleasure helping you. And obviously, also very exciting for us to hear of your success. And once again, congratulations for matching.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priya. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.